It's Monday, September 27. This is the news on PBCJ. I'm Simone Absalom Gale. The Health and Wellness Ministry on Monday signed an agreement with private facilities that will act as access points for the vaccination implementation program. These entities will provide additional sites for members of the public to be vaccinated.
Jamaica is set to achieve its target of administering 700,000 doses of the COVID-19 vaccine by the end of September. However, this is just one milestone in the journey towards herd immunity against COVID-19. Minister of Health and Wellness Dr. Christopher Tufton says expanding vaccination access points in partnership with the private sector is key to achieving the goal of 65% of the population getting vaccinated against the coronavirus.
Today we have probably 7 to 8% of our population fully vaccinated, another 17 or 18% with at least one dose, and over 700,000 jabs delivered in the arms of Jamaicans. And that represents progress, but clearly the ideal scenario would be to have achieved the 65% if we could. Theoretically, we would have loved to achieve it 3 months ago, but practically all the obstacles that I have outlined and that you know about have brought us to this point.
Invitations were sent to the private sector through requests for quotation for their participation in the initiative. The RFQ is aimed at small, medium, and large enterprises.
That in terms of outlets, hospitals, pharmacies, larger established medical centers, they all qualify as long as the protocols are followed. Because ultimately, our job is to protect the health and wellness of people. And we have to always balance the need to inoculate and to meet targets and to be timely and be efficient with the need and the role that we have to maintain the standards and the qualities that are needed.
Dr. Tufton says the ministry has received a number of proposals and 11 entities have been selected.
We're very proud of the team that is here, the persons, the entities that have been selected. We believe that they are very qualified, technically and otherwise, to be a part of this process, and we are happy to partner with them, of course, in a way that allows the public health infrastructure, the public health technocrats to provide some oversight to ensure standards are maintained, but nevertheless giving these entities the autonomy sufficient to inoculate. It's a simple process. We provide the vaccines free. They promote. We will help them to promote themselves, their locations. People go there or make appointments and they get their vaccination.
The Health and Wellness Minister says AstraZeneca and Johnson & Johnson COVID-19 vaccines will be available at the following locations.
The Vein Centers of Jamaica, Lady Musgrave Road, Health Plus Associates, Boulevard Supercenter in Kingston, Online Medics, Greater Portmore St. Catherine, Fontana Limited with locations in Mandeville, Montego Bay, Kingston, Ocho Rios, and Savlamar. I didn't know you had so many outlets, but okay. Portmore Health Complex, Henderson Drive in Portmore, Windsor Wellness Center, Windsor Avenue, Kingston, Bay West Wellness Hospital, Bay West Shopping Center, Montego Bay, Winchester Surgical and Medical Institute, Winchester Labs at Winchester Road, Kingston, Hospiten, which is at the Half Moon Complex in Montego Bay, Medical Associates, Tangerine Place, Kingston, the private practice of Dr. Michelle Holt, okay, not all medical center, Caledonia Avenue, so that's not all hospital, I'm assuming.
Just before signing the public-private partnership agreement with the entities, Dr. Tufton explained that the vaccines will be offered free of cost.
Senator Matthew Samuda says Jamaica remains one of the countries with the lowest amount of COVID-19 cases in its correctional system within the hemisphere. He told members of the Upper House on Friday that approximately 300 inmates from the adult correctional facilities have been vaccinated against COVID-19.
The institution's relative success is partly due to foresight. Sensitization to the potential threat began in late January 2020. Through the sharing of basic facts that were known then about the virus with key members of DCS medical team and representatives of the correctional centers. Subsequently, a comprehensive contingency plan was prepared with the MoH, CDC, PAHO, and WH guidelines forming the foundation, while adding our national sensitivities. The DCS HQ then carried out an education effort targeting staff and inmates through the organization. Pamphlets were handed out, posters erected, radio stations in the facilities were used to share information. The parades were used as a platform to educate staff, small face-to-face sessions, all that you can imagine, and that would form the regular part of public education. Mr. President, once Jamaica recorded its first case of COVID-19, DCS implemented the measures in an attempt to prevent or delay the virus entering our correctional centers and to ensure that we had adequate systems in place for containment when inevitably it would. Mr. President, some measures that you can think of, which we all know are commonplace in all spaces: increased use of sanitizers, distribution of masks, quarantining those who leave facilities before re-entering the population. We even put in place, Mr. President, a digital courtroom at the Horizon space for mention dates so that inmates would not have to interact with the court system physically to reduce spread. Generally, Mr. President, we have had a lower infection rate up to this point than our neighbors, and we're proud of the team who has managed this implementation.
Today, Monday, September 27, is being observed as World Tourism Day under the theme Tourism for Inclusive Growth. Here in Jamaica, this will coincide with Tourism Awareness Week, which runs from September 26 to October 2. Jamaica's Tourism Minister Edmund Bartlett spoke about activities for this week at a recent JIS think tank.
This year's World Tourism Day theme will also guide Jamaica's activities for Tourism Awareness Week, which runs from September 26 to October 2, as we raise awareness of tourism's significant contribution to the island's wide-scale growth and development. And the activities that we're planning will include daily advertorials highlighting initiatives of the Ministry of Tourism and its public bodies that foster inclusive growth, a church service, a virtual expo, a virtual concert, and a youth digital photo competition.
Minister Bartlett underscored the critical economic role that tourism plays.
To truly appreciate then the importance of tourism to Jamaica's wide post-pandemic economic recovery, let us look at some numbers. Pre-pandemic in 2019 was indeed a record-breaking year for Jamaica's tourism in terms of both arrivals and earnings. We welcomed 4.2 million visitors. The sector earned $3.7 billion, contributed 9.8% to the nation's gross domestic product, or GDP, and accounted for 170,000 direct jobs, while indirectly impacting another 100,000. Prior to COVID-19, tourism also drove 15% of construction, 10% of banking and finance, 20% of manufacturing, and 21% of utilities, as well as agriculture and fisheries. Overall, the tourism sector grew by 36% over the past 30 years against our total economic growth of 10%, meaning to say tourism grew 3.6% faster than the national economy.
The Ministry of Labour and Social Security is recognizing the contributions of the elderly to the national development through annual Senior Citizens Week celebrations. This year's activities are being held under the theme Preserving with Resilience. Senior Citizens Week began with a church service on Sunday at the Mandeville New Testament Church of God.
Minister of State in the Ministry of Labor and Social Security, Xavier Main, says our elders need our time and support now more than ever. He says that part of the country's population has been severely affected by the COVID-19 pandemic, hence this year's theme for Senior Citizens Week, Preserving with Resilience.
The health, socio-economic, psychological impact of the global health crisis has been significant for the older adult population, and it continues to affect their health and wellness, safety, income, and food security, along with their social engagement and participation.
Speaking of the socioeconomic challenges being faced by the older population, Minister Main is calling for more voluntary support.
Voluntarism will be crucial for us as a nation going forward, as it connects both generations and allows us to learn from each other. The revised National Policy for Senior Citizens has been approved by Cabinet and will be tabled in Parliament shortly. The Ministry of Labor and Social Security continues to provide services for the elderly, including the social pension for persons 75 and above, our PATH program, the National Insurance Scheme, various social assistance grants and emergency relief, as well as special accommodations during this pandemic.
He says the seniors toll-free line, 888 Seniors, remain operational as a point of contact.
I encourage all Jamaicans to be more respectful to the rights of older people. I denounce and condemn violence in all forms against senior citizens and encourage greater support, care, inclusion, and protection for them.
The state minister is also encouraging seniors to get vaccinated against COVID-19 and follow the safety guidelines, being that they are at a higher risk of severe illness due to the virus.
The Jamaica National Agency for Accreditation, JANAAC, says it's expanding its efforts, and one strategy is to gain the United States Food and Drug Administration's approval as a third-party accreditation body. The JANAAC recently announced that it will be audited by the FDA in its quest to become a recognized FDA third-party accreditation body. The agency's Chief Executive Officer, Sharon May Shirley, told JIS News that the entity over the last decade has increased the number of agencies accredited to international standards in Jamaica and the Caribbean, and it's represented in at least 10 Caribbean states. Parenting is one of the most challenging yet rewarding jobs. Now, parents who are struggling with challenges relative to the pandemic can get help through the National Parenting Support Commission's helpline at 876-560-9272. Chief Executive Officer of the National Parenting Commission, Kezia Kerr, says the helpline will serve all parishes. Late music producer Lee Scratch Perry is hailed as one of the driving creative forces behind late reggae king Bob Marley. Perry was instrumental in helping to craft Marley's unique sound. The eccentric producer, who died in August at age 85, was laid to rest last week. However, in observance of his contributions to music, a bust of Lee Scratch Perry will be erected in Hanover. Marlon Samuels tells us more.
Lovers of reggae music globally will soon be able to gather at a bust of Lee Scratch Perry to be erected in Hanover.
I'm truly saddened by his transition, but at this time, grateful for the enduring instruments, his music, his hits, his personality, his fashion, his philosophy. There was only one Lee Scratch, but his impact profound, having inspired countless artists, musicians, producers, songwriters at home and beyond our shores. To his widow, Morel, children, sibling, and other relatives, it is my intention to honor him with a bust to be erected in Hanover as a fitting tribute to one of the parish's greatest sons, as part of the Jamaica 60 Diamond Jubilee celebration.
Once erected, admirers of Mr. Perry will be able to meditate in front of the monument. The memorial bust of Lee Scratch Perry will form a part of the living memory of the town. It will hopefully become a major tourist attraction in the parish. Lee Scratch Perry died on August 28. He was laid to rest in his hometown on September 23, 2021. For the news on PBCJ, I am Marlon Samuels.
Gabriel Thompson gives us the latest market update in this quick business report.
In foreign exchange trading for Friday, September 24, the US dollar sold for an average $149.74. The Canadian dollar ended trading at $118.64. The pound sterling traded for $206.84, and the euro sold for an average $176.74. In Friday's trading session, the JSE Combined Index advanced by 633 points to close at over 400,000 units. Overall market activity resulted from trading in 92 stocks, of which 36 advanced, 37 declined, and 19 traded firm. The Junior Market Index declined by 9 points to close at over 3,000 units. Stocks advanced for 1834 Investments Limited, Access Financial Services Limited, and AMG Packaging and Paper Company Limited. Stocks declined for 138 Student Living Jamaica Limited, Berger Paints Jamaica Limited, and Caribbean Assurance Brokers Limited. Trading firm were CAC 2000 9.5% preference shares, CAC 2000 Limited, and Cargo Handlers Limited. Sterling Investments Limited was the volume leader with over 5.2 million units, followed by Trans-Jamaican Highway Limited with over 1.8 million units, and Lumber Depot Limited with over 1.6 million units. In market data for oil, prices rose for a fifth straight day on Monday, with Brent at its highest since October 2018 and heading for $80 amid supply concerns as demand picks up in parts of the world with the easing of pandemic restrictions. Brent crude futures added $1.15 at $79.24 a barrel. West Texas Intermediate crude futures added $1.07 to $75.05 a barrel, near its highest since July after rising for a fifth straight week last week. And that does it for this Monday edition of the Business Report Inside the News on PBCJ. I'm Gabriel Thompson. Pleasant viewing.
We go now to news from the region. In St. Lucia, the unavailability of electronic devices and a lack of wireless internet remains a stark reality for a lot of students. The Minister for Education says this has not escaped officials who continue to forge ties with relevant stakeholders to ensure that every child is brought up to speed. More details from HTS News Force.
Efforts are underway to close the digital divide as education officials work diligently to ensure all the nation's students are well equipped with devices. However, the Minister for Education, Sean Edward, notes that a device for online instruction is merely a paperweight without internet connectivity.
One of the challenges we've also had in lesson delivery is the inability of students, even when they have the devices, to get internet connectivity. As we speak, the ministry responsible for telecommunications, I know, is in dialogue with one of the service providers, and at a very, very affordable rate, some bundled packages will be made available.
Edward says the partnership with the telecommunications provider will benefit 5,000 student-occupied households.
Roughly 5,000 households in this country moving forward. The criteria by which people or households would qualify for that kind of assistance has not been fully established, but rest assured we will take into consideration those families that are vulnerable, that are marginalized, that are indigent, because what we want as much as possible is to ensure that we create a platform where all our students can benefit from state resources, irrespective of their socio-economic background or what part of the country they emanate from.
The plan to boost connectivity comes on the heels of the recent announcement that some 4,000 laptops will be procured and assigned to students in Forms 1 and 2 in the first instance, and eventually grade 6 students thereafter.
I would have said to the nation in an address roughly 2.5 weeks ago that the government is in the process of procuring roughly 4,000 laptop computers that we will put in the school system. So that is a positive. But I must also tell you that there are some students we have not been able to reach. We are sparing no effort in going out into the communities to find those children. But the much bigger scenario and the bigger situation is one where, as a country, we need to adhere to the protocols, and the sooner we can bring this COVID situation under control by way of a significant reduction in the numbers that we see on a daily basis, the better it will be, not just for the education sector, but for our country as a whole.
COVID-19 has left no sector of society unscathed, including tourism, health, sports, recreation, and education, which have all undergone radical adjustments to accommodate operations within the context of the pandemic. However, the education sector comes with its own nuances, with students, parents, and teachers all impacted. The Ministry of Education continues to echo the sentiments of the Ministry of Health in its appeals to the public to play their part in the pandemic fight to accelerate the return to some semblance of normalcy. Joachim Duplessis, HTS News Force.
In Trinidad and Tobago, the Surfing Association would like discussions on how they, along with other water sports, can get back to training and other activities. Kurt Fuentes of TTT News spoke to President of the organization, Ronald Riley.
He says he understands government's move to protect the citizenry, but believes moves made to open up other industries can be done to help sport.
What we've asked for going forward was for some sort of approach to opening up access to the ocean, right? We understand why the beaches need to be prohibited. We understand what the government is doing right now regarding the actions that they're taking to keep everybody safe, and we welcome that. We know that it's a necessary evil that has to be done. However, we do see in the same format that they go about opening up other industries, that they can do the same for the beaches. So what we've advocated for was for ocean access.
He says the areas that surfers use do not lead to mass gatherings on land or in the water.
The beaches that we utilize aren't regularly used public beaches for swimming. They're very rural, rugged areas for surfing where, you're surfing way out beyond the breakers, so you're not even near to the shoreline to begin with. That's one. But two, in advocating for other athletes that need to use the ocean, we can be the stewards in that, we can ensure that other people showing up on the beach are not just hanging out and not exercising, because we understand that it's going to affect us and our youth.
Adding, together a solution can be found, and with the possibility of beaches opening in the near future, he says they have plans to ensure their membership adhere to the rules in a controlled environment.
For our athletes, what we've advocated, and we're drafting another letter to go to the Ministry of Health and the Ministry of Sport, setting those guidelines where, obviously a limited amount of people and unlimited set of beaches that we would identify for athletes to train in. So in that regard, we can set up guidelines for ourselves and our athletes. But like I said, we are advocating and first for our wider membership, because we are an association of members outside of just our athletes, doing the sport for the country.
Kent Fuentes, TTT Sports.
Rastafarians in Grenada are echoing similar sentiments to their counterparts in Jamaica, accusing the government of sidelining them from various discussions with religious leaders. Quiselina John of GBN News has the details.
Rastafarians in Grenada are echoing similar sentiments to their counterparts in Jamaica, accusing government of sidelining them from various discussions with religious leaders. Government convened a press conference Monday, engaging funeral directors and religious leaders on issues surrounding COVID-19. Their focus was to discuss government's decision to implement new measures regarding the safety of citizens and changes to funeral engagements. However, the Rastafarian community was not included on the panel.
No, we have not, because, and as Rastafari has been marginalized, and like we are, like we're not there, but we are there. We are there, and we are the soul of the nation. So we was not inviting per usual.
Bongo Sarai and Sister Matara were guests on GBN's Good Morning Grenada program Wednesday. Health Minister Nicholas Steele, appearing on another platform, To The Point, was asked about the apparent non-inclusion.
First off, they have been reached out to, and no, there was no intention. It was not intentional. We reached out through Ministry of Ecumenical Services to the various organizations. And unfortunately, the Rastafarian organization is not part of any of those entities. So when we reached out to get as many people to table as possible, there was not an effort to reach out individually to the Rastafarian or the Jewish community. Both were not reached out to, simply because they were not part of the two umbrella entities that we are accustomed dealing with.
The Rastafarian community has also taken a firm stance on the issue of COVID-19 vaccination, opting not to support that measure, but instead relies on Mother Nature.
Staying safe is good. So, and I know everything we hear about go to take the vaccine is good thing. But the things we're not hearing, how to build your immunity, because we know this thing fight against your immune system. So what we as Rastafari doing towards ourselves, we keep building our immunity and reaching out to one another, which is the type of food to build the immunity, as Rasta say all the time. Eat healthy. Let your food be your medicine. And that's a practice as Rastafari we have, letting our food be our medicine.
Chrislina John, GBN News.
In sports, we look to football. This is the latest from the digital-powered Jamaica Premier League. Waterhouse Football Club clipped Mount Pleasant Football Academy 1-0 in their first leg semi-final contest at the UWI-JFF Captain Horace Burrell Center for Excellence on Sunday. Shaquille Bradford's goal in the 80th minute sealed the deal for Waterhouse and ensured their advantage heading into Wednesday's second leg encounter at the same venue. And with that, we end our news package. Join us tomorrow as we do it all over again. You've watched the news on a PBCJ, the People's Station.